Welcome back to Books Breakdown, the place where powerful books are transformed into practical lessons that can change the way you think, work, and live. Today's book is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, one of the most influential books ever written on productivity, focus, discipline, and overcoming procrastination. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. People spend hours scrolling through social media, delaying important work, and waiting for motivation to magically appear. Most people know what they should do, but they struggle to actually start. That is exactly the problem this book solves. Brian Tracy explains that success does not come from doing more things. It comes from doing the right things first. The frog, in the title, represents your biggest, hardest, and most important task, the one you avoid because it feels uncomfortable, difficult, or stressful. But ironically, that one task often has the power to completely transform your life, career, studies, finances, or future. The author teaches that if you begin each day by tackling your most important task first, you can dramatically improve your productivity, confidence, discipline, and overall success. Through simple but powerful principles, this book explains how to stop procrastinating, manage your time wisely, prioritize effectively, and focus deeply on meaningful work. These lessons are practical, realistic, and immediately actionable. Whether you are a student preparing for exams, an entrepreneur building a business, a creator chasing dreams, or simply someone trying to become more disciplined, this book offers a complete blueprint for becoming highly productive and unstoppable. So sit back, focus carefully, and let's break down the key lessons chapter by chapter. Chapter 1. Set the table. Brian Tracy begins the book by explaining that clarity is the foundation of all achievement. Most people procrastinate because they are uncertain about what they truly want. Without clear goals, the mind becomes distracted, confused, and overwhelmed. Successful people, on the other hand, know exactly what they are working toward. Tracy introduces a 7-step formula for achieving goals and increasing productivity. First, decide exactly what you want. Vague goals create vague results, so clarity is essential. Second, write your goals down because unwritten goals remain only wishes in the mind. Writing them gives them power and direction. Third, set deadlines because deadlines create urgency and prevent endless delay. Fourth, make a complete list of every task required to achieve the goal. Fifth, organize that list into a clear step-by-step plan. Sixth, take action immediately instead of waiting for the perfect time. Finally, do something every single day that moves you closer to your goal, even if it is only a small step. Tracy emphasizes that consistent daily action builds momentum, and momentum destroys procrastination. One of the strongest lessons from this chapter is that goals act like magnets for the mind. When you become crystal clear about your destination, your brain automatically starts searching for opportunities, solutions, and ideas to help you succeed. People who write down goals and review them regularly are far more productive than people who only think about them casually. This chapter teaches that productivity begins with absolute clarity of purpose. Chapter 2. Plan every day in advance. In this chapter, Brian Tracy explains that every successful person is a planner. Most people waste huge amounts of time because they start their day without structure or direction. They react to interruptions, distractions, messages, and random tasks instead of controlling their schedule. Tracy says that planning is one of the simplest but most powerful productivity habits anyone can develop. He introduces the famous 6P formula. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. According to the author, spending a few minutes planning your day can save hours of wasted effort later. He strongly recommends creating written lists for everything: daily tasks, weekly goals, monthly projects, and long-term objectives. When tasks are written down, the mind becomes organized and focused. Planning also reduces stress because you no longer carry everything in your head. Tracy suggests preparing your next day's schedule the night before. This allows your subconscious mind to work on solutions while you sleep. Often, people wake up with fresh ideas and greater clarity simply because they planned in advance. The chapter also explains the importance of breaking large projects into smaller, manageable steps. Big tasks often feel overwhelming, which leads to procrastination. But when a project is divided into smaller actions, it becomes easier to start. Tracy explains that productivity is not about rushing constantly. It is about moving forward with clarity and intention. A person with a written plan usually accomplishes far more than someone who works randomly without direction. The chapter's biggest message is simple. Every minute spent planning multiplies productivity and makes success easier. Chapter 3. Apply the 80-20 rule to everything. This chapter introduces one of the most powerful productivity concepts ever created, the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. Brian Tracy explains that roughly 20% of your activities produce 80% of your results. This means that only a small number of tasks truly matter, while most activities contribute very little value. The problem is that most people focus on easy, comfortable, low-value tasks because they provide instant satisfaction. High performers, however, focus their energy on the small number of tasks that create the greatest impact. Tracy explains that important tasks are usually difficult, stressful, and mentally demanding, which is why people avoid them. But these difficult tasks are often the exact activities that can transform careers, businesses, studies, and personal growth. The author warns against confusing activity with accomplishment. Many people stay busy all day long but achieve very little because they are working on unimportant things. Productivity is not measured by how busy you look. It is measured by the value you create. Tracy encourages readers to constantly ask themselves whether a task belongs to the vital few or the trivial many. He explains that successful people develop the habit of attacking high-value tasks first, even when they are difficult. Over time, this habit creates massive results. This chapter teaches that learning to focus on the most valuable activities is one of the greatest skills anyone can develop. Chapter 4. Consider the consequences. Brian Tracy explains that the true importance of any task is determined by its consequences. Tasks with major long-term benefits should always receive the highest priority. Successful people constantly think about the future before deciding how to spend their time. They understand that today's choices shape tomorrow's reality. Tracy explains that long-term thinking improves short-term decision-making. People who only chase comfort, entertainment, and instant gratification usually damage their future success. Meanwhile, disciplined people are willing to sacrifice temporary pleasure for long-term rewards. The author encourages readers to regularly ask themselves a powerful question: what are the potential consequences of doing or not doing this task? This question immediately reveals which activities truly matter. Tracy also introduces the law of forced efficiency, which says that there is never enough time to do everything, but there is always enough time to do the most important things. This means people must accept that they cannot complete every task perfectly. Instead, they must focus their energy on activities with the greatest long-term impact. The chapter also explains why deadlines often create stress and poor quality work. People who procrastinate until the last moment usually make mistakes, feel anxious, and produce weaker results. Tracy recommends planning early and building extra time buffers into schedules. One of the biggest lessons from this chapter is that successful people think years ahead while making daily decisions. Their present actions are aligned with the future they want to create. Chapter 5. Practice creative procrastination. In this chapter, Brian Tracy explains that procrastination itself is unavoidable. Since nobody has enough time to do everything, everyone procrastinates on something. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people lies in what they choose to postpone. High performers intentionally procrastinate on low-value activities while focusing on important work first. Tracy calls this creative procrastination. Instead of wasting energy on meaningless tasks, successful people deliberately delay activities that produce little value. The author introduces the concept of posteriorities, meaning tasks you intentionally decide not to do right now. Learning to say no becomes one of the most important productivity skills. Tracy explains that every new commitment steals time from something more important. Many people fill their schedules with distractions, unnecessary meetings, excessive entertainment, endless scrolling, and low-priority activities. As a result, they never have enough time for meaningful work. Creative procrastination helps eliminate those time wasters. The chapter also introduces the idea of zero-based thinking, asking yourself, knowing what I know now, would I start doing this activity again today? If the answer is no, that activity may need to be abandoned or reduced. Tracy explains that focus requires sacrifice. To create space for important goals, you must remove activities that waste energy and attention. This chapter teaches that productivity is not only about what you choose to do, it is also about what you choose to ignore. Chapter 6. Use the ABCDE method. Continually, Brian Tracy introduces one of the most practical systems in the book, the ABCDE method. This technique helps people organize tasks based on importance. Tracy explains that most stress comes from uncertainty and lack of priorities. When everything feels important, people become overwhelmed and procrastinate. The ABCDE method solves this problem by creating clarity. A tasks are extremely important tasks with serious consequences if ignored. These are your biggest frogs. B tasks are tasks you should do, but which have only minor consequences. C tasks are activities that would be nice to do, but have no real impact on your future. D tasks are tasks you can delegate to someone else. E tasks are activities you should eliminate completely because they add little or no value. Tracy emphasizes that people must never work on B tasks, while A tasks remain unfinished. Unfortunately, many people spend their entire day completing small, easy activities while avoiding meaningful work. The author explains that successful people discipline themselves to immediately begin their A1 task, the single most important task of the day. Once they start, they continue working until the task is completely finished. Tracy says this habit alone can dramatically increase productivity, confidence, and self-respect. The chapter teaches that priorities create power. When you clearly know what matters most, it becomes easier to focus and avoid distractions. Chapter 7. Focus on key result areas. In this chapter, Brian Tracy explains that every job, career, or responsibility has a few key result areas that determine overall success. These are the activities that create the biggest impact and directly affect performance, income, growth, and opportunities. Most people are busy throughout the day but are not always productive because they spend time on tasks that do not truly matter. Tracy explains that if you are unclear about your key result areas, you will constantly feel overwhelmed and distracted. He encourages readers to ask themselves an important question: why am I on the payroll? In simple words, what results are you actually expected to produce? Every role has about 5 to 7 core responsibilities that matter the most. The author explains that weakness in even one critical skill can reduce your overall effectiveness. That weak area becomes a barrier to higher success. Instead of ignoring weaknesses, successful people identify them honestly and work to improve them. Tracy also explains that people often procrastinate on tasks in areas where they feel insecure or less skilled. That is why developing competence is so important. The better you become at something valuable, the more confident and motivated you feel while doing it. The chapter teaches that continuous self-improvement is essential for productivity and long-term success. Chapter 8. Apply the Law of 3. Brian Tracy explains that out of everything you do in a day, only a few activities truly create major results. According to the Law of 3, nearly 90% of your value comes from just 3 important tasks. Most people spend too much time on low-value activities because they feel easier and more comfortable. As a result, they stay busy but fail to make real progress. Tracy encourages readers to identify the 3 tasks that contribute the most to their success, career, studies, or goals, and focus heavily on them every day. He explains that successful people simplify their priorities instead of trying to handle everything at once. When you spend more time on your highest value tasks, your productivity, confidence, and results improve dramatically. This chapter teaches that concentration on the right activities is far more important than simply being busy. Chapter 9. Prepare thoroughly before you begin. In this chapter, Brian Tracy explains that preparation is one of the simplest ways to defeat procrastination. Many people delay important work because they feel confused, overwhelmed, or mentally unprepared. Successful people reduce this resistance by organizing everything before they begin. This includes arranging tools, materials, information, notes, and creating a clean workspace. Tracy explains that when everything is ready, it becomes much easier to start immediately and stay focused. He also emphasizes the importance of creating a productive environment free from clutter and distractions because your surroundings strongly affect your mindset. Even small preparation steps can increase confidence and motivation. The chapter teaches that preparation creates clarity, and clarity creates momentum. Chapter 10. Take it one oil barrel at a time. Brian Tracy explains that large goals often feel intimidating because people think about the entire task all at once. This creates stress and procrastination. The solution is to break big tasks into small, manageable steps. Tracy shares the example of constructing a huge oil pipeline by focusing on one section at a time rather than worrying about the entire distance. The same principle applies to work, studies, and personal goals. Instead of focusing on how difficult the whole project seems, focus only on completing the next small step. Every completed action builds momentum and confidence. Tracy explains that success is never achieved instantly. It is built gradually through consistent progress. This chapter teaches that even the biggest achievements become possible when you move forward step by step without becoming overwhelmed. Chapter 11. Upgrade your key skills. In this chapter, Brian Tracy explains that one of the biggest reasons people procrastinate is because they feel unprepared or lack confidence in their abilities. When a task feels difficult, people naturally avoid it. The solution is continuous learning and skill development. Tracy says that the more skilled you become in your field, the more productive, valuable, and confident you feel. Successful people never stop learning. They constantly read books, attend courses, practice their abilities, and look for ways to improve themselves. The author encourages readers to identify the single most important skill that could have the greatest positive impact on their future and begin working on it immediately. He explains that even small improvements in a key area can create major long-term results. Tracy also emphasizes that every skill is learnable. Nobody is born successful or highly talented in every area. Through practice, repetition, and discipline, anyone can improve. The chapter teaches that investing in yourself provides the highest return possible because better skills lead to better opportunities, higher confidence, and less procrastination. Chapter 12. Identify your key constraints. Brian Tracy explains that every goal has a limiting factor that slows progress. Most people work hard every day without identifying the real reason they are stuck. Successful people carefully analyze their situation and focus directly on solving the biggest obstacle first. Tracy calls these obstacles constraints. A constraint can be internal, such as lack of discipline, fear, poor habits, or missing skills. It can also be external, such as lack of resources, support, time, or opportunities. The author explains that no matter how hard you work, your progress will always be limited by your biggest constraint. That is why identifying the real problem is so important. Instead of making excuses or blaming others, productive people take responsibility and focus on improving the area that is holding them back the most. Tracy encourages readers to honestly ask themselves, what is the one factor limiting my success right now? Once the answer becomes clear, energy and focus can be directed toward removing that obstacle. The chapter teaches that solving the right problem is often more important than working harder. Chapter 13. Put the pressure on yourself. In this chapter, Brian Tracy explains that highly successful people do not wait for pressure from teachers, bosses, parents, or deadlines. They create pressure internally through discipline and high personal standards. Average people usually need supervision and reminders to complete important tasks, while successful people push themselves to perform, even when nobody is watching. Tracy explains that self-discipline is one of the most important qualities for long-term success. The ability to force yourself to start and finish difficult tasks separates achievers from average performers. The author recommends pretending that you will be leaving for a long trip tomorrow, which forces you to focus only on the most important work today. He also encourages readers to create personal deadlines earlier than required to avoid last-minute stress and poor quality work. Tracy explains that life will always contain challenges, delays, and distractions, but successful people respond with responsibility instead of excuses. This chapter teaches that when you learn to motivate yourself consistently, you become more reliable, productive, and confident in every area of life. Chapter 14. Motivate yourself into action. In this chapter of Eat That Frog, Brian Tracy explains that one of the biggest differences between successful and unsuccessful people is self-motivation. Many people wait for inspiration, perfect conditions, or encouragement from others before taking action, but highly productive people learn how to motivate themselves every single day. Tracy emphasizes the importance of maintaining a positive mental attitude because your thoughts directly influence your actions, energy, and productivity. Optimistic people focus on opportunities and solutions, while negative people spend time complaining about problems and difficulties. He encourages readers to control their inner dialogue and constantly feed their minds with encouraging thoughts. According to Tracy, when you train yourself to think positively, you naturally become more confident, energetic, and determined to complete important tasks. He also explains that every setback contains a lesson, and that challenges should be viewed as temporary obstacles rather than permanent failures. By developing the habit of self-encouragement and focusing on goals instead of excuses, people can push themselves into action even when they do not feel motivated. This mindset helps eliminate procrastination and creates long-term success. Chapter 15. Technology is a terrible master. In this chapter, Tracy discusses how modern technology, while useful, can easily become one of the biggest destroyers of focus and productivity. Smartphones, social media platforms, emails, messages, and endless notifications constantly interrupt attention and make it difficult to concentrate on meaningful work. Tracy explains that many people become addicted to checking their devices repeatedly throughout the day without even realizing how much time they are losing. Every interruption breaks concentration, reduces efficiency, and forces the brain to restart its thinking process again. He warns that technology should never control your schedule or dominate your attention. Instead of reacting instantly to every message or notification, people should deliberately decide when and how to use technology. Tracy recommends switching off notifications, setting specific times for checking emails, and creating distraction-free work environments. He also explains that many forms of entertainment and internet browsing provide only temporary pleasure, while stealing hours of productive time. The chapter teaches that productivity requires discipline and that controlling technology is essential for maintaining focus. By limiting unnecessary digital distractions, people can regain mental clarity, reduce stress, and dedicate more energy to important goals and responsibilities. Chapter 16. Technology is a wonderful servant. After explaining the dangers of uncontrolled technology, Tracy balances the discussion by showing how technology can also become an extremely powerful tool when used correctly. He explains that technology itself is not the problem. The problem is how people choose to use it. When managed wisely, technology can help save time, increase efficiency, improve communication, and organize daily activities more effectively. Tracy encourages readers to use digital tools such as calendars, reminders, scheduling apps, and productivity systems to stay organized and focused on priorities. Technology can simplify difficult tasks, automate repetitive work, and help people accomplish more in less time. However, he reminds readers that technology should always serve their goals rather than distract them from those goals. Successful people use technology intentionally and only for activities that provide real value. Tracy advises avoiding mindless scrolling and unnecessary online activities that consume time without contributing to personal growth or productivity. He explains that disciplined use of technology creates balance and allows people to enjoy its benefits without becoming dependent on it. The main lesson of this chapter is that technology can either support success or destroy focus, depending on how it is controlled and managed. Chapter 17. Focus your attention. This chapter highlights the importance of deep concentration and focused attention in achieving high levels of productivity. Tracy explains that the ability to focus completely on one important task is becoming increasingly rare in a world filled with distractions, yet it remains one of the most valuable skills for success. He states that interruptions such as phone calls, social media, conversations, and multitasking constantly weaken concentration and reduce work quality. Every time attention shifts away from a task, the brain requires additional time and energy to refocus again. Tracy encourages readers to create environments where they can work without interruptions and fully concentrate on their most important responsibilities. He also explains that focused work improves creativity, problem-solving ability, and efficiency because the brain performs best when fully engaged in a single activity. Successful people protect their attention carefully and refuse to let unnecessary distractions steal their productive hours. Tracy suggests planning tasks in advance, organizing the workspace, and removing anything that could interrupt concentration. The chapter teaches that sustained focus allows people to complete work faster, produce better results, and experience greater satisfaction from their accomplishments. Chapter 18. Slice and dice. The task. In this chapter, Tracy explains that people often procrastinate because large tasks seem overwhelming and difficult to begin. When a project appears too big or complicated, the mind naturally avoids it and delays action. To solve this problem, Tracy recommends breaking large tasks into smaller, simpler, and more manageable parts. Instead of focusing on the entire project, people should concentrate on completing just one small step at a time. He compares this process to eating a large meal one bite at a time. Even the biggest goals can eventually be completed if approached gradually and consistently. Tracy emphasizes that beginning is usually the hardest part, and once momentum starts building, continuing becomes much easier. He also explains that completing small sections creates a sense of progress and motivation, which encourages people to keep moving forward. This method reduces fear, confusion, and mental resistance while making difficult tasks feel achievable. Tracy encourages readers to write down each step clearly and focus on immediate action rather than perfection. The chapter teaches that small, consistent efforts, repeated over time, can lead to major accomplishments and eliminate procrastination. Chapter 19. Create large chunks of time. In this chapter, Tracy explains that important and meaningful work requires long periods of uninterrupted concentration. Major achievements are rarely accomplished through short bursts of distracted effort. Instead, successful people intentionally create large blocks of focused time dedicated to completing high-priority tasks. Tracy recommends scheduling these time blocks in advance and protecting them from interruptions such as calls, notifications, or unnecessary meetings. During these sessions, full attention should be given to one important activity without switching between tasks. He explains that deep concentration improves efficiency, increases work quality, and helps complete difficult projects much faster. Tracy also introduces the idea of gifts of time, which are small periods during the day that can be used productively, such as travel time, waiting periods, or early morning hours. Successful people make full use of these moments instead of wasting them. He emphasizes that planning the day carefully and organizing priorities allows people to use time more effectively. The chapter teaches that concentrated blocks of focused work are essential for achieving excellence, increasing productivity, and accomplishing long-term goals. Chapter 20. Develop a sense of urgency. This chapter focuses on developing the habit of acting quickly and decisively instead of delaying important tasks. Tracy explains that highly successful people move with purpose, energy, and determination. They do not waste time overthinking, hesitating, or waiting for perfect conditions before taking action. Instead, they develop a strong sense of urgency and complete tasks immediately once they recognize their importance. Tracy believes that this action-oriented mindset provides huge competitive advantage because most people procrastinate and move too slowly. He also explains that developing urgency does not mean rushing carelessly or making poor decisions. Rather, it means maintaining momentum and consistently working at a productive pace. Successful individuals are known for their reliability, speed, and ability to finish tasks efficiently. Tracy encourages readers to train themselves to respond quickly to opportunities and responsibilities instead of postponing them. He explains that the faster people begin and complete important work, the more confident and productive they become. This habit creates discipline, strengthens work ethic, and leads to greater achievements over time. The chapter teaches that urgency is a learned habit that can dramatically improve productivity and success. Chapter 21. Single-handle every task. In the final chapter, Tracy introduces one of the most powerful productivity principles in the entire book: completing one task fully before moving to another. He explains that multitasking is often misunderstood because constantly switching between activities reduces concentration, lowers work quality, and wastes mental energy. Each time people stop a task midway and move to something else, they lose focus and slow down their progress. Tracy encourages readers to choose their most important task, begin immediately, and continue working on it until it is completely finished. This habit, called single-handling, builds discipline, strengthens concentration, and creates a strong sense of accomplishment. He explains that successful people are able to stay focused for long periods without giving in to distractions or the temptation to switch tasks. Completing work fully also reduces stress because unfinished tasks often create mental pressure and anxiety. Tracy believes that the ability to concentrate on one important activity until completion is one of the greatest skills for personal and professional success. The chapter concludes by reminding readers that productivity is not about doing many things at once, but about completing the right things efficiently and consistently. Eat That Frog is more than just a book about productivity. It is a guide to building discipline, focus, and consistent action in everyday life. Brian Tracy explains that success does not come from motivation alone, but from developing the habit of completing important tasks even when they feel difficult or uncomfortable. Throughout the book, he shares powerful lessons about setting clear goals, planning ahead, prioritizing high-value work, improving important skills, avoiding distractions, managing time wisely, and taking immediate action instead of procrastinating. One of the strongest messages in the book is that small, consistent efforts repeated daily can create massive, long-term success. You do not need to transform your life overnight. You simply need to focus on doing the right things every single day. The final lesson of Eat That Frog is simple but powerful. Stop delaying action. Face your biggest tasks first and take control of your future, one step at a time, because every great achievement begins the moment you decide to finally eat the frog. Please do like, share, and subscribe our channel.